Hey guys, thank you once again for joining us here at YOUmake Miami. So, first, I'm going to introduce my colleague Hector. He will be talking about some poster ideas and how to come up with getting some resources and where to get your ideas from. So, yeah, let's go ahead and begin. Hector?
All right. Thank you so much, Dinah. And welcome everybody to our webinar. So like Dinah mentioned, today we're going to be showing you guys some ideas on how to create your poster using vectors. And I wanted to show this image right here. When you're dealing with climate of or art, climate of art, we have basically two views. We can see posters that reflect, like the bad part of climate change, like the pollution and the mistreatment of nature. But there's also the opposite side that we want you guys to maybe start thinking about, which is not as common, which is start thinking positively about what changes can be made and how to create a better society, more environmental friendly society. And so in this picture, for example, I really liked it a lot because it has a lot of greenery. The houses use solar panels. You see people actually having a positive change in their environment. So this is something that I think we can feature more of instead of being all doom and gloom. But regardless of which aspect you guys want to focus on, we are going to cover some programs that you can use to create this art and giving you some advice as to how you can go about making these posters. So here are some tips that I have for you guys on how to start creating or thinking about creating some of these posters. One of the main things is, of course, that you're making something more than just a pretty picture. Um, Creating a poster, at least for this type of program, you have to have a message. So it is important to communicate an idea. And again, the idea can have different forms. You can just create a poster that builds awareness or gives information. You can also have what is called a call to action, which is you're inviting the public or the person who looks at your poster to do something, either to join a group or participate in a certain event. And of course, like I mentioned, we also have the informational one, which just gives you information as to what is going on, some statistical facts. So when you create a poster, and you can see one example that I have on the right, it is a very simple poster, but it has a clear message, which in this case is reduce, recycle, and reuse. And it's a campaign, and there's a certain call to action, which is join us Green Mile campaign. And of course, it has a little website. So it directs you to find out more information because the poster has to be a simple message, but you want to make use of other venues that you might have, like your social media, to visit your website, to sign up for an event. So this is something that you might start thinking about when you try to create a poster of this nature. Like I mentioned, that it should have a powerful message and not just be a pretty picture. Now, if you guys are not too sure of what to do or how to go about creating your poster, definitely use pictures as reference when creating your poster. And this basically means two different things. It means um, you looking at other posters to get ideas or get inspired, not just copy. Of course, we don't want you guys to just look at something and just imitate it. We want you to get inspired, look at the way they use fonts. Sometimes the fonts have particular shapes, the colors that they use. One thing that I want to mention, when you're starting out, if you're not too familiar with vector programs, is that you can start using basic geometric shapes to kind of keep it simple. You can achieve a lot of really cool effects and a really effective poster by using simple circles or squares or triangles. You don't have to create a super detailed illustration. Of course, with more practice, you're going to become more familiar and you can develop your techniques. But you don't have to be an expert to start creating good, effective posters. And again, like I said, the references, we're going to be talking about some places that you guys can get some images. Just be careful because you could just say, oh, I'm going to Google some pictures and use them. But like I said, if you imitate too close or you copy it outright, you might get called out on that on social media, and they might ask you to take down the poster or to give credit. Um, and especially if you're doing this for a particular organization, you don't want to be caught using somebody else's um, copyrighted pictures or illustrations. So we want to make sure that we respect copyright. But you can get inspired, like I mentioned. Now, as far as vector programs, the standard is Illustrator. So this is a paid program. Before you were able to own it completely and just pay a one-time fee. But a few years ago, they went into the cloud and they started charging a monthly fee or even a yearly fee. You can choose. Um, so that's kind of, it becomes expensive, especially if you're just starting out and you're a student. So it's not a cheap way to create art, but it is the industry standard. So if you ever want to apply for a job and the first thing they're going to ask you, if you want to become a graphic designer or if you want to apply for a job that deals with illustrations and vector-based illustration is, are you able to use Illustrator? Same thing if you want to do other stuff, they ask you for Photoshop. So those are the industry standards. Now, the good thing about the other programs that I have here is that they're all free and they work pretty much the same way. So if you're able to use one, you pretty much know how to use all the other ones. Of course, the interface might look a little bit different and the tools might be a little bit more precise or in different places, but they all pretty much work the same way. So the second program that I want to highlight is called Vector, and this is a web-based application and it's free. The downside is that it's a little bit sluggish, and unfortunately today they're doing a scheduled maintenance, so the system is down. That's one of the downsides of using a web-based application. So if their internet is down or your service is down, you will not be able to have access to this program. But it is pretty useful, and if you're starting out with vectors, this is a good program to start trying out things with. Another one that I found that is kind of new, at least new for me. I don't know how long it's been around, but it's pretty cool. It's called Boxy SVG, and this is another web-based application, and it's completely free. And like I said, it's relatively new, but it is actually faster than Vector, and it gives you a lot of features, more features than Vector. Um, the bad thing is I'm not as familiar with it, so I'm still trying to play around with it. But that's part of this process. We're giving you certain tips and showing you certain things. But of course, you have to spend time with the program and try different things out. That's really how you become more proficient with these programs. And finally, we have Inkscape, which is another free program. But unlike the other two that I mentioned, this one has to be downloaded and installed on your computer. Sometimes it's a little bit finicky and it might just crash on you and stuff. But a lot of people have used it, and I've seen some of the artwork that they've made, and it's really, really nice artwork. So it's a very similar program to Illustrator, but just it's a little bit buggy. I guess it depends on the kind of system that you have. But all of these three programs are free, of course, to use. So now I want to quickly, just very quickly mention some places that you can download pictures and not be concerned about copyright and stuff. The first one is Pexels, and we actually use that a lot. Besides photographs, they also feature videos. So you can grab and download small clips of videos. A lot of the stuff that they have is nature-based, so a lot of animals and nature pictures. So those are really good to download. And they have HD, I believe up to 720p resolution images and videos. The other place is called Pixabay. I've heard of this and I've used it a little bit, not as much as Pexels, but it's also another very popular resource on the internet. And finally, Unsplash, which I have to be honest, I really haven't used that much, but some people have mentioned that it's a good alternative to the other ones if you want to try that out to get more pictures if you feel like you're not able to find what you're looking for on the other two. Now, when it comes to creating posters, I just want to show you three different ones that deal with climate change and just to basically get ideas. And when you're looking at a poster, look at the type of font that they're using, how the elements are organized in the picture. For example, when you look at this poster, you immediately look at the center, you look at the little recycle and the light bulb and the message right on top. And then later on, you start looking at the other details at the bottom, like where to go and stuff. So here's another one that is also, again, very simple. It's just a globe cut in half with a little plant or a little tree growing up and a nice message. Don't just pine for a better planet. Um, these are, again, very simple posters, but they're effective and they can be used not just for print, but also for the web. So that's another thing that you want to make sure that you pay attention to. Where is your art going to be displayed? Is it just going to be a print campaign? Is it going to be used for print and the web or other mediums? So just be aware of where it's going to be shown. And finally, this is another one that I really like. It's, again, kind of simple, but it has a lot of different elements, and it gives you like a really good message. We are all interconnected, and then you can see the globe and the planet and the background. So you can achieve really nice designs just using vector based. As you can see, all of these posters that I showed don't feature any photographs, so it's all vector based. And the cool thing about vector based programs is that you can scale the graphics. So, for example, these birds over here or the little whales, if you needed to reduce the size or increase the size, you can easily do that by using vectors. Let me see. So let me quickly show you. Let me switch around. So this is Boxy SVG. Oh, and I also wanted to show you some of the pictures that that I saw for the poster just to get ideas. This one is like if you wanted to show some of the negative effects of pollution. Of course, this is like the standard that we've seen in a lot of advertising. Just a lot of smoke coming out of the nuclear plant over there. So you can get ideas and you can start forming your composition. Maybe you like the colors that they use or that contrast. It almost looks like a silhouette with that sun in the background. It's a little sunset. This one, for example, is a little bit more positive. It's more calming. And the one that I use for my poster, which unfortunately I can't show you guys because it's on vector, but Dinah is going to show us how to use images. So in the one that I originally made, I used these little polar bears and I had them similar to how they're doing. But what I did, I separated the mom from the cub because I wanted to show that separation and a little call to action. So you can definitely manipulate your images in that way. And how I did it is I just basically traced the little bear. And just very, very quickly, because I'm going to pass it over to Dinah, who's going to give us an actual demonstration with Illustrator. This is Boxy SVG. This is the free app. So this is the website right over here, boxy/svg.com. And you can either sign up for it or just launch the application. And it has all the tools right here on the left side. And on the right side, it has the settings for each individual tool. And when it comes to vectors, there's two different aspects to the vector. There's the fill. So let me just, for example, use the rectangle just to give you a quick example. So you can pick any of these shapes. It already has circles, ellipses. So you can start creating artwork just right away with these. And you literally click and drag and create a rectangle. And it tells you right here at the top what you're doing. And if you select a little paintbrush right here at the top, you can choose the color of the fill. If you look at it over here, this is different tones of red from super dark to light or white. And this little slider gives you different hue values. So you can definitely manipulate this. If you know the hex value or the RGB value, you can type it in here. Or if you use the eyedropper, you can also click and choose colors from an image or anything like that. So I just wanted to show you guys this little program and play around with it. And like I mentioned, it's very similar to Illustrator. So it works the same way. It looks different, but it gives you the same options as Illustrator. So right now I'm gonna pass it over to Dinah, who's gonna show us the actual, some of the steps on how to create your poster using Illustrator, which again is the industry standard.
Thank you, Hector, for that great introduction. Um, thank you so much for that. And yes, just like Hector was talking about, gathering your own resources and trying to find your own inspiration is the first and foremost, the most important part of it all. So to give you a little bit of inspiration, I'm gonna share this. I mean, it's nothing new. However, it's fairly new in the sense that we've never really heard about this art movement called solar punk. And it's basically what Hector was talking about. It's talking about a more of a utopian future versus a dystopian future that we see when we think about, let's say, cyberpunk or biopunk. If we start thinking about what cyberpunk is, and like how the aesthetics of it, and it looks pretty cool with the neon lights and the your robotic arm and whatnot, and people with pink hair. It looks really cool. But when you start really digging into that future and into what it is, um, I'm thinking, I'm like, I don't want that sort of future, you know? Um, so there is this other opposite future, which is called solar punk. This future is talking about 100% renewable energy civilization. It's talking about sustainability and self-governance. So it's completely the opposite of what cyberpunk is and what biopunk is. I'm gonna go ahead and share screen so that I can not just talking and talking here. So this poster that I'm about to show you, let me go ahead and do desktop, share. This poster that I'm showing you right now, I created this one, talking about the future, kind of like warning people like, hey, do not let this be our future, And 2030, if you actually think about it, it's not that far. And it's kind of scary to even think this way. And I started thinking to myself, well, this is the type of future that we're constantly being fed in media, and basically what I'm trying to do is to now talk about the opposite. What if we start talking about if we actually build a future for tomorrow that's real, that's actually sustainable and where we actually combat climate change and our future is not so gloomy and dystopian, right? So this future, I did this poster thinking, not really thinking about it, but I realize now that this is what I've been fed. So this is what I'm showing. But now I was introduced into this new, uh, oh, before I keep going, I want to show you my favorite quote by Napoleon Hill, which basically stems for what I'm talking about today is whatever your mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. So if we can actually achieve a cyberpunk future, because we're actually like a few steps away, um, then that means that we could actually create a more utopian and solar punk future. So this one is your cyberpunk. And then you have your steampunk, which is more like the industrial revolution. And then you have your biopunk. This one is like a little bit more, I'm not really a fan of this one. This one has to do more with like biogenetics and changing of DNAs. I'm not really for this future. So I really like this future instead, where instead of talking about our problems, we talk about a future that can actually be livable for everyone, a future that's green, a future that's sustained with solar power, with 100% um, renewable energy, a future that is not only clean, but justice for all as well, right? And so this is where I got some of my inspiration for today's poster. I will be using Illustrator, but before I do this, let me go and show you the pictures that I gathered. Before I start doing any sort of designing or anything like that, I like to collect a few pictures here. I'm going to show you some of the pictures that I'm going to be using. I chose this greenery tropical background. Of course, I have the vertical building. I'm not going to use that, but I am going to use this flower, some more greenery stuff. And of course, I use this, she's from Pexels, it's just a woman. The flowers, I use this mostly like for inspiration. So, and here's some more vertical buildings. And so these are the pictures that I'm going to be using. This one is more for inspiration, just to see like, okay, this is kind of what I'm kind of going for, but I'm not copying that, right? So now, let's say I did get started on a lot of it, because if I would have started like right now, I won't be able to finish it. So I had to start and get ahead of that. So my bad, I'm so sorry. But don't worry, we're gonna start you off. Let me go ahead and clean this off first. Actually, let's go ahead and I'm going to do a new one just so that I can show you from the beginning how to open it. Nope, not a new document. Oh, there it is. Okay, so posters come in many different shapes and sizes. You can choose from your standard one. I believe it's like 14 by 17 or 17 by 14. Should be the standard one. And the orientation is vertical. I like to always use inches. That's what I work best with. And I know Hector was mentioning, like, you have to think prior to designing and knowing where your art is going to live. If it is going to be living in the web, your best bet would be to leave it in RGB color mode, right? Red, green, blue. If you are thinking about printing it, you want to switch to your CMYK, as that is the color mode that the printers read, right? But actually, this one's only going to live in the web, so I'm going to leave it at RGB. And then I'm going to go ahead and create my document. Okay, so now that I have my document here, I'm kind of, well, it already did it for me. I really like the essentials. It will usually have it like this, but I personally myself, it's just really how you like to work. I like to work with the Essentials Classics, where I see my toolbar and then the options to my toolbar that connect to my tools down here. And then I'm gonna have my my other, what are these called exactly? My little icons. And the most important one that I'm going to be using and focusing on is the layers. That's the most important one. So I'm going to begin with the first layer and show you what I did. I want to create this background. I want to give it like a gradient background. Let me see. So we're going to be using some of the tools that we're going to be using, definitely going to be your layers. You're going to be using your pen, your Pathfinder, and your outline and fill. So it's going to be a lot of pen tool for sure. But this first one, I'm going to bring in my rectangle tool. And so I want to give it maybe you don't want to give it a solid background, but maybe you want to give it like a gradient, and you could do that. I started off mine with a gradient, as you could see here. Oops, this one has a gradient. So after you have your rectangle here, go ahead and click on your first color. I'm sorry, I'm gonna go and switch it to my gradient. Where's my gradient? Here it is. Okay, so my gradient color. And now that I have this gradient out, I can actually click on this, and there's my little, I could actually choose any of these colors, but I actually already chose my colors. I'm gonna be using this green, I'm going to click on this other one right here. Oops. And then I'm going to be using this blue right here. And you see this little line right here. This is gonna, it helps you, you could actually control it, and it allows you to move your gradient to whichever color you want it to be more dominant. And the good thing about this one is that you could actually put your gradient at an angle. You see how it gives it an angle there, or you could use it for the other. You could pretty much place it anywhere and the color will follow it. So I thought that was pretty cool, right? So now that you decide where you want to start your background, now you're going to start working with your pictures. So some of the first pictures that maybe you want to bring in, let's go ahead and bring in the picture. Now, when you bring in a picture, it's not just opening a new picture. You want to place the picture. So if you notice here, let me go and pick. So let's go and see. Where's the woman? So let's go ahead and bring her in. And here it doesn't show me. I got it with, since this one is free, sometimes if you use pictures like on Google, not to copy them or anything like that, but just to like use them as references and whatnot, you could bring them into Illustrator and it's gonna bring them with the link. If you see that, just unclick that so that it doesn't link it, unless you want it to be linked so that you don't lose your picture in the future. So let's go ahead and place it. And you see it's like a little sticker right here. It's kind of big. So just make sure you hold shift and you're gonna minimize it, right? That's a pretty big, large picture. So let's pretend that all of a sudden I am here. Let's pretend that I am here now and that I did all of this work, right? And so I'm gonna bring in this woman. And so I used her here. Let me go ahead and bring in, I'm gonna cover her again one more time. I'm gonna open all my layers. Now, one thing that I want you to notice here in my layers, I actually named all of them. If you notice here, let's pay close attention. Most important, I'm using the picture. Here's the picture that I opened, right? And I put in the next one is the outline of the woman, which is this outline right here, the whole entire outline. And then on top of that, I'm putting the hair and I'm making sure that I'm labeling each part, right? The next one is the face. I haven't worked on the face, which is the next one that I'm going to work on. And then we have the woman's neck. And you see how I'm actually, they go one on top of the other so that I don't lose track. And if I have double that, I just make sure that I'm labeling so that I don't lose track of my layers, because they could get a little tricky sometimes. So let's begin with her image. So my thought is I want to make her, she's like not really dreaming. She's, for the lack of a better word or description, she's daydreaming, right? But I like to call it manifesting. And she's manifesting and imagining this solar punk vision. So that's really where I'm getting her from. And if you notice, I'm not copying the person exactly. If you notice here, I'm not really copying her. Sorry if I'm not, that doesn't really allow you to see her. Let me see. Just wanted, this is just so big. Let's see. So I'm just going to go ahead and outline, and I'm going to use her as a reference because I need that human form that I'm imagining. So I went ahead and started outlining her body. So let's begin on outlining her body. I want to make sure that I'm always locking this layer. That's one thing that you have to make sure of, like that you're locking your layers at all times. Sorry, there's this, trying to move this there. There we go. I'm gonna add another layer here. And notice how my layer color changes. So you're gonna see the outlines that I make are gonna be in red. So this is not the size that I actually want her. So my apologies. I wanna make her a little smaller. Oops, obviously I can't move her because I'm not in that layer. Let's see. So any questions, Hector, Jaden, anybody?
So far, no questions in the chat.
Okay, awesome. Let me see. So now I'm gonna place her here, but I might move her around. Right now, I've just really needed her body to not be so big so I could actually get a better grasp of it. So the first thing is that we're gonna be using is our famous pen tool. I go to P. I constantly I use my shortcuts a lot. So if you don't know what tool I'm switching to, I'll try to remember to tell you what I'm using, but it's really just a lot of pen tool. So here, the number one thing that when you want to start this type of vector poster, I like to begin with the background the most, not this background, not the blue background, but I'm talking like the silhouette of her body, right? I'm trying to follow that. So let's first begin with her head. Here, I'm going to separate her hair. Oops. I'm not going to do the hair. I'm going to do it in a separate layer because I'm going to be, one thing that you have to remember is when you're doing this type of design, since they are going to be living in different layers, I recommend to do one at a time, right? Like let's do the face first. Let's do the body first, right? Or the neck type of thing. So you just have to have some sort of order. Now that let's go ahead and begin with the outline. Here, just select your first anchor and you want to make sure that you come around and follow that angle right above her head. Oops, it's giving me a color. That's okay. I'm going to switch it over. If you see here, this is my fill and my stroke. We're going to be going back and forth between these two a lot. A shortcut is Shift X to switch back and forth between these two, the colors. I'm sorry, the stroke and fill. So I'm going to be going between those two. The fill color, I really don't care about it so much right now. It's not important. Right now, I'm focusing on is the outline, right? Let's get a little closer. The great thing about working with vectors is that they don't lose their resolution, and that's amazing. So I'm gonna go ahead and just go around here. And so pretty much is doing the same thing. And once you get the hang of it, you're actually going to like it. When I first got introduced to this, I was a little lost and it was a little frustrating. But once I started to get the hang of it, I really, really liked it. So now I'm trying to make the decision on whether or not to follow the shape of her nose or kind of make a shape of a nose myself, like so that we don't exactly copy that. So let me see. And then making sure that you follow that. And obviously the nose is just, it's just a made up nose. Like, no big deal. Let me see. Here, you're gonna have to choose on whether or not, we wanna focus on the outline. If you see here, you wanna stay right on that outline, right? And notice, in the human figure is very organic. So a lot of these outlines, they are not straight. Like you're not gonna have straight outlines, especially with dealing with anything with nature or human bodies. So that's why you want to stick to using curves, as that gives it obviously a more organic texture. I didn't like that. I'm going to follow her lip all the way over here and kind of skip over this little indent right here. All right. And now let's just continue. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I am a perfectionist, so I apologize if you can follow along. If you have Illustrator or vector.com, you could follow along. And notice here that I keep going back and clicking on that anchor because if I don't, it kind of does this weird wobbly thing. I'm gonna do that again. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna outline her face first, okay? You see how it's kind of like, it's dictating me where to go. I don't want it to do that. Like I want to be the one who tells it where to go. So I'm going to click on that again. I'm going to click right here in her chin, kind of following that outline, and then click off. I'm going to go ahead and follow this again. And once again, it's not perfect whatsoever. I'm going to follow. I don't want to get her hair, so I'm just going to do on the hairline right here.
I also wanted to mention while Dinah is doing the demonstration that she is using a pen tablet. So we really do recommend that you guys either use a pen tablet if you're going to be doing any kind of digital artwork, because trying to create this kind of art using just a mouse, it's going to be very, very hard and difficult. You have less control uh, with a mouse than you do have with a pen. So if it's something that you're interested in doing, there are some very affordable tablets that you can invest. So if you're interested in digital art, that might be something that you guys might want to look into. It will make your artwork so much easier to create.
Yes. Thank you, Hector, for that great information. Thank you so much. So now I'm sort of satisfied with her face outline. Now, if you notice any sort of like anything that you don't like, then you're like, ah, I could fix that. You could go back and fix it as well. So now to move it along a little bit more, I'm going to move to my other one that I already started. And I kind of want to focus on the features of her face. So before I do that, I'm going to flip it again. Let me close this off. Everything is closed off. I'm going to select all of the layers, making sure all of my other ones are actually locked. Oops, let me make sure this one's locked as well so that I don't grab anything by mistake. So I'm grabbing all of them. I'm going to click O, and this is the to rotate, right? And then click enter. And I want to, I'm sorry, I'm going to do a reflection, so vertically. Okay. So I'm going to bring it back to how the picture looks, right? Because I'm going to follow the picture again. You see how it goes. It falls right where, almost close enough to where she was. Let me go ahead and move it a little bit. She kind of looks kind of cool like this, right? That looks really nice. All right. So I'm not gonna work with anything else other than her face. So the first thing we have to do, we have to make sure that we are locking anything that we are not working with. I'm gonna work with her face, and this is her face. I'm gonna lock the hair and the outline, the body outline, right? And I'm gonna keep the picture open. If you see, I'm gonna keep the eye open right here. And I'm going to, the rest of them, I'm gonna keep them open. Any questions? I think I saw something in the chat.
No, it's just Nicole commented that she loves the hair on the
Oh, yay.
photograph.
Thank you. Yeah, right, she's got really nice hair. Okay, so now let's zoom in a little bit. Oops. Why doesn't it want to zoom in? Zoom in. There it is. So to zoom in, I just use Command and the plus sign, or Command and the minus sign. That's going to give you zoom out. But I want to zoom in. And like I'm telling you, I use a lot of the shortcuts. I prefer working that way. So I already started off with the eyebrow here, right? The next thing will be, let's outline. Is this still live? Is this live? Oh, this is live. I don't want to, let me see. There we go. I wanted to lock that. So I'm going to stay where in my layer where it says detail, face details, right? So let's go ahead and zoom into the eye. So now the eye, if you notice, there's the shape on the outside from here, and then there's this shape. One thing when drawing, going back to drawing, one of the number one things when you're drawing, you want to look for basic shapes. Here, your first basic shape, you see a a triangle, and you see like this sphere, right? The eye. So in this situation, I'm not going to click double because the outline, the pen, it kind of already wants to do it for me. Now I have to decide where I'm going to land. I'm going to do it here. And I'm going to follow this outline here. You know what? Why am I going back is because I changed my mind. And this happens to me a lot. It might happen to you guys too. I'm trying to decide where it's best for me to begin, whether to begin from the center out or from out in. I would much rather do it out, from the out into the inside, right? So let's go ahead and do the eye. Okay, I'm not quite sure if to do that one or not. Okay, now I know. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to decide. I'm like, do I go for the eyelid or not? But we're going to go back to this part right here. My apologies. I'm sorry. I'm trying to think ahead, and sometimes it's a little difficult to try to think ahead because even if you do think ahead, it still sometimes doesn't work how you thought it would come out. Okay, so now that's my eye. And then now I'm gonna look for this, the iris, right? And I have it in the same file right here, but I'm gonna do another layer because I'm gonna draw it right on top of this other line, and I don't want it to to touch it. So I'm gonna lock it up, and then I'm gonna bring in the pen again. And here I'm gonna just follow the outline of the eye. Bring in the eye again. And you see how I made that little point right there? I kind of don't like that. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna click on this, bring that over. So I'm gonna use 3 points instead of 2. And make that a little smaller, holding my shift button. And now I'm gonna use the painting tool. I clicked on eye, which is in your, where's your little drop tool? Where's the little paint tool? I'm so used to using the,
it should be right where the gradient tool is. It's if you click the corner of
so, all right. So I go to the little eyedropper. It's right here. I click on the eye, not the eye. Sounds weird. So I'm clicking on the eye for the eyedropper. And I'm going to click on the eye because I want to borrow her eye color, right? Sounds a little weird. I'm going to borrow her eye color. I'm going to make sure that now this outline, This one's going to be the white outline, and then there's going to be another outline in the outside. So I'm going to click on this one, click on the eye. Oops, it's locked. You see what happens? I forget sometimes. Click on this, click on the eye. Select the outline. I always forget that. Select what you're going to use the color, and then it switches. And you see it went back to, like, it filled it. So what you want to do over here, if you want to swap it, or you could do Shift and X, which will switch it between your fill and your stroke. Okay, and let me see something really quick. Now, obviously, I want to continue going more into detail of the face, but I think time will not allow me to. But before our time is up, let me go ahead and show some of the other stuff that I was working on, and next week we'll go more into detail on finishing. And let me show you. Let me hide this picture here, because I think the face was maybe a little too ambitious for right now, but I apologize for that. So I'm going to bring this other picture here, and I'm going to show you what I already drew and what I'm using from this picture. So I'm going to borrow some of the basic shapes here. And if you notice, like, I can't select anything because they're locked right now. And I'm going to lock these other ones as well. I'm going to open this one up. I'm going to see. I'm going to switch it back to the outline. And here, I'm going to do the same thing, where I'm going to just use and borrow some of the elements that I see around here. Look, it's horribly pixelated. So I'm just going to borrow some of these, the window designs. You don't have to, you don't want to copy it exactly, but you could just borrow some of these window designs. And you probably want to do them individually, as that will probably help you better. So you have more control over each of the elements that you're designing. Click enter to separate from that one. And I'm going to borrow this other one here. And I'm going to close it off for today, because I know that we do have, Hector's going to show us a couple of other things before we go. No, I just want to finish this off. And that is it. Now, I am going to keep working on it during between now and next webinar. But from now and next webinar, just make sure that you guys have your pictures, that you have all your elements that you're going to want to be using, and you could be working along with me. And if you have questions or you get stuck on something, you can have me right here and you could ask me. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing screen, and I'm going to allow Hector to go ahead and jump in.
Thank you, Dinah. So I just wanted to quickly mention before we close, to make sure to visit our website at the library's website at www.mdpls.org. That is our library's website. We have a lot of events coming up, and you can also find free resources like lynda.com is a really, really good source. And if you have your library card, you can use it absolutely free, and you can learn more about creating posters. You can learn more about Illustrator, and you can follow along at your own pace at home. And also, don't forget to follow us on our social media, our Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. It's YOUmake Miami. And I wanted to pass it over to Jaden, because tomorrow is our very first animation club meeting. So we have a new program that we're going to be bringing to you every other Saturday. But I'll let Jaden talk a little bit more about that program for you guys. So Jaden, you want to let us know about the animation club?
Yes, so this is a new club that we're starting up. And what you can expect from this club is that we're not only going to be like nerding out about our favorite cartoons every Saturday, like a Saturday morning cartoon situation. But we're also going to be talking about animation, like the process of how cartoons are made, and also more insight into the industry for anybody who may be curious to pursue animation as a career path. So this is something to look forward to. And we're going to be kicking off the first meeting with talking about reboots, because there's a lot of cartoon reboots happening very recently. So we were just going to have like a fun little discussion about like comparing the old original versions of these cartoons to their now reimagined, newer, rebooted versions. So that's something to look forward to. It's going to be really fun.
All right, thank you, Jaden. And then I'm passing it over to Dinah for any closing statements.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We sincerely appreciate you staying with us this whole entire hour on your Friday. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. And like we said, please, get your resources, your pictures together. And next week we will, if you'd like to share those pictures with me and see I'd love to see what is your inspiration. So yeah, thank you so much and have a great weekend. Bye, everybody.